Hi everyone, Josie here. I'm here with Donny today, and we are both in lockdown here, so we wanted to do something a little bit more fun. Donny, what do you want to call this segment?
Well, since we are talking about a celebrity and kind of
Mm-hmm.
dissecting like who he or she is
Mm-hmm.
using astrology, and we're probably disclosing some intimate parts of them, why not we call it like spilling the astro tea?
You know what? I like it.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be taking a look at Sam Smith. So for his chart, he doesn't have a listed birth time, but Donnie did some amazing work doing a rectification, and we think it's pretty spot on. So Donnie, do you want to
Let me just share his proposed.
because we kind of had a feeling he was a Pisces rising. And so we went off of that. And then you did the rectification from there, yeah?
Yeah. Just play around with the timing to see like if certain things sync up, which magically it did. So I just
They
did a little
really
bit
did.
of tweak, and the proposed birth time for him is 2:45 in the morning. So it's a night birth, night chart.
Mhm.
Sorry. Yeah. So
Yeah.
with Pisces rising, right? First of all, the first thing that struck me was his third house, which is
Hmm.
in Taurus, where his Sun, Venus, and Mercury are. And if I actually look at the what do you call that? The fixed stars. Actually, his Mercury is on a fixed star Menkar, spelled
Hmm.
as Menkar, and it is the one of the fixed stars that represent a sea monster. Yeah, it's a sea monster, Satis, and Taurus rules the throat. And Menkar actually represents something that's quite sorrow filled. And
Hmm.
so from Sam's from all of his like discography and all the songs that he's written and released, like I think it ties in nicely with this Mercury in Menkar.
Yeah.
And the next thing I zoomed in is his sun. Because Sun actually is clipped in between two fixed stars, one being like Algol, which is around 26 Taurus, and another one is Alcone, which is at 29 Taurus, 0 Gemini. So it's in between these two. When
Hmm.
I actually looked at the meaning of these two fixed stars, um, Algol actually can mean like the Medusa head.
Yep.
Um, it also, from Algol, you get alcohol. He
Hmm.
drinks a lot, from what I know.
And
And
the sun is ruling the sixth house, which can talk about your addictions as well as your health.
you can, like on the regular, what do you do?
Hmm.
And Algol can also means that losing your head over something. So he may get drowned in alcohol at times when he's doing his songwriting sessions, months on end. And another one is Alcone, which is one of the fixed stars in the Palladian constellation. And this is a very androgynous fixed star. So you can see his evolution. Like throughout the years, he's like from coming out as gay to coming out as gender queer. And
Hmm.
later on, we'll probably have a look also like when he came out, was it last year? Late last year. Being a yeah, last September as being a gender non-conforming.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one of the indicators, like sun that's uh very close to Alcone fixed star. And what I find even more interesting is that when I look at the other luminary, which is the moon, um, in the rectified chart, that the moon actually sits bang on the galactic center.
Mm-hmm.
Galactic center is like, and it's high up in the chart. It's the highest point in the chart for him. There's something that's very zany. There's something very eccentric. There's something very literally out of this world regarding him.
And his moon is out of bounds, isn't it?
His moon is also what we call out of bounds as well. So out of bounds, it actually infuses kind of like a Uranian or Aquarian kind of energy to him, which kind of it kind of sinks in with his because when I see out of bound moon, it can represent someone who's very hypersensitive, very intuitive, and since it's bang on the galactic center as well, he actually has the uncanny ability to tap into universal consciousness.
Yeah.
So,
and the moon is ruling his 5th house as well, which is self-expression, and the way that he expressed himself is like the moon, where it's very up and down, and then you add that Uranian energy where it's very up and down and it's always changing.
It's always changing. It's like I'm not even surprised he's got like frequent meltdowns that we don't even know of. Yeah. And furthermore, I just looked into his chart to see why is he a very good singer and songwriter to start with. And
why did we think that Pisces was the ascendant?
Because Pisces is actually like very
soulful.
There's a soulfulness to him. Pisces also rules like there's a sense of withdrawal. So there's always this shyness, Pisces, with him like giving interviews, because Pisces is the sign where Venus is exalted. And Jupiter also rules Pisces, but it's the night version of Jupiter, so to speak.
Yeah, and he's got Jupiter in Virgo, and he does have a lot of body issues.
He does, yeah, like with the weight issues, but
and a lot of insecurity. And I remember the first time I heard him, I did not think he was a white guy because he has like so much soul. Like I was like, the first time I seen him, I was like, no way.
Well, but also, you know what? The Pisces thing is also like when he gives interviews, which is 7th house, there's almost like a uptight reservation with him.
Yep.
At least initially, until he kind of like knows that person like pretty well, or the interviewer very well.
Yeah.
He kind of relaxes a bit. But then like initially when he came onto the scene, there's this kind of awkwardness.
Actually, you're right. I watched the interviews. It is like that.
Yeah, it's in the beginning, like the first few years, first album and slightly into the second album release, there was this awkwardness during interviews that I can't really explain. But this kind of sums it up pretty well. And we said Taurus is voice, so he's got 3 planets here. And what I actually look into, like, what makes his song so popular, and it is his these 3 planets actually trine Uranus and Neptune in the 11th house. 11th house is mass popularity and is in earth signs. But let me go back to the 3rd house first. So we've already covered that this Mercury is conjunct the fixed star Mancra, which can rule like sorrow and anything that's, well, it's actually pretty sad actually. It's a sad tone.
But those are kind of, you know, like how his songs are too. Like whenever I'm sad, that's when I listen to Sam Smith. I'm like, make me feel better.
But you know what? This Mercury of his actually, like, besides pain, right, that's expressed through songs or singing, which is Taurus, it also has like a passion that comes forth with it as well. Mercury and Venus are together. So Venus and Mercury together can mean song lyrics.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a melodic, you know, poem of sorts.
He does write his own songs.
Yeah, so he's a songwriter. So that one is like he's a songwriter, and both are actually like, you know, like in the same sign, clustered together with the sun. So it and the sun rules the 6th house of work. he can actually like songwriting as work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
so what do you think of his Venus opposition Pluto? Because that one is pretty exact.
well, the thing is that like Venus in Taurus basically talks about his throat and voice in the third house of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And opposing Pluto can mean that there's a depth to it. There's a sincerity is also Pluto as well.
And it could also be then like hidden pain around relationships that fuels those songs and that writing.
That's what he sings about, yeah. But when I think about the quality of his voice, right, this opposition, actually Pluto opposes all three planets in his third house. So it's like, it gives him a voice that's kind of like, when he goes to the vibrato, you know, and it's like when he does all the ups and downs, you can literally feel it.
Totally. And he does have like a very like powerful voice. And I think of like Pluto and Scorpio representing like bass, you know?
It
so
draws you into the soul, which is very much like Pluto in Scorpio, right?
For sure.
Connects to the soul. And it connects to the collective very well because of that trine to musically Neptune, to the masses in the 11th house. And that's how his sudden rise to fame, which is Uranus. You know, it all plays into it. And that Pluto is actually like forming a sextile to those two planets. So you can see how this triangle actually releases its energy into the 11th house, which is popularity with the masses. How does he actually how do we actually see he's got the ability to write songs? Is actually all the three planets squaring Saturn. Because you need, Saturn is like to construct, to build, and know how to lay out the foundations of something, organize something. Saturn is also a planet of organization. And with the lyrics that he's written, he needs to also understand the melody, which is represented here. He carves it into something concrete.
Well, and it seems too that with Saturn in the 12th house, if he has any kind of like spiritual blockages or pain, then they can come out or be released through writing.
That as well, actually. With his Saturn, though, in Aquarius, we can actually check the essential dignity of this Saturn in his chart. And it's actually a pretty good Saturn. 12th house is pretty good for Saturn as well in the sign. And Saturn actually rules those two planets in Capricorn. So something actually tells me that there's a sense that even though he's like famous now and he's got like a ton of fans and all that, there's this kind of detachment from the fame that he has. Like he doesn't kind of like he still jokes around, you know. I mean, like I didn't see him like the last thing I would actually associate with him is like a Devo. I think there's this detachment with fame. You know, he's doing what he loves and he's happy and he's grateful and all that. And that shows in this T-square as well, with like three planets opposing Pluto and all like expecting that Saturn. So it's like this disappearing months on end to be alone. 12th house Saturn. If I'm not producing an album, you don't know where I am.
And he had that album called In the Lonely Hour.
In the Lonely Hour, very much 12th house and Saturn energy. Yeah, as well. Anything you want to add?
Mm. Oh yeah, another reason why we thought he was Pisces rising. We looked into his parents a little bit and the qualities of each of those. So if we look at his 10th house, he has the moon there. So the moon obviously always talks about the mom, but the dad was actually a stay-at-home mom. And the mom, represented by the moon, was basically like the breadwinner. She had the big career. She made a lot of money. So that's interesting. And then his fourth house, talking about his mom, Mercury is in Taurus in the third house. And she actually worked at a bank. Taurus rules banks. And she made a lot of money doing that.
Conjunct the sun.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money. What else can we mention?
So did you want to talk about that? What year was that we said?
Actually, you know what? Something I found very interesting. If we look at the table right below here, we know that I actually use this table to decipher by progression which planet goes via progression changing. I will actually use this table to determine if years down the road, certain planets in his chart by progression changes direction.
Mm-hmm.
So for Saturn will station in another 9.5 days, which is around, if you convert that to years, a day for a year, it would be 9.5 years. And interestingly, that's when he decided to come out to his parents as gay at age 10.
Oh, no way.
Yep. So I've pulled out the solar return for that year, knowing in the background that Saturn in his natal 12 has, by progression, station to go retrograde. Mm-hmm. So let's see his solar return for that year, which is right here. If we actually employ profections, which means that, a circle around the zodiac is because of the 12 houses, you end up here as 12 years old.
So each house represents a year.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this time we count backwards because he came out at 10. So this is 12. This is 11. This is 10. So we end up with a Capricorn house cusp. And the ruler of Capricorn is actually Saturn. So we got to see how Saturn behaves both in the natal chart and also in the solar return.
Right.
So we can see that Saturn in his natal chart, firstly, it is the apex planet of a T-square.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost tells me that there's something that he's hiding because Saturn natally is in his 12th house. And it happens in a sign of Aquarius, so there's something queer going on.
Mm-hmm.
Something queer going on. And so that's indication 1. And indication 2 is that the 5th house in his solar return is bang on the sign of Capricorn. When I think about the 5th house, it's one of several things. One of them being, because you can use the method of derivative houses. And
my favorite.
Yeah, your favorite, Josie. How can I forget that? And it's 10 houses, 10 signs away from the 8th house cusp.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the 8th house cusp in someone's chart represent? It can represent someone's true sexual identity.
Mm-hmm. So
when you count 10 signs away, you end up with 5. 10 meaning you come out into the public with something.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't it fitting that the 5th house actually can refer to a coming out of sorts?
For sure. And that solar return ascendant is in Virgo, and so Mercury is falling then in the 10th house from the solar return ascendant. So it's like another indication of the exact same thing.
And also what is very interesting is that 4 planets are inside the sign of Gemini,
Yeah.
including the profected Lord, which is Saturn. Saturn is very close to the North Node in the dual sign of Gemini. So there's something going on there with like telling something about him being like dual, because it's a dual energy.
Yeah.
And all that is like something that I take note of. So all this 4 planets plus North Node falls into his solar return 10th house, which is mum. And if I'm not wrong, he actually told his mom first.
Yeah, I think his mom knew, I think she said, when he was like 3 or 4 years old. But what's interesting in here too is that with Virgo as the solar return ascendant and Mercury being in Gemini falling in the 10th from itself, it's like he came out but to his family, because the 4th house is your family.
Mm-hmm. He came out of the closet, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And but if I recall reading from the news, his dad is actually very worried. Like his dad actually asked, "Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Well,
sure?" Because at the back of his or the dad's mind is about Sam being potentially bullied by his peers at school, and you can actually see that because since we're talking about a Saturnian year at age 10, we can see the bullying coming from the Mars squaring Uranus and Neptune. Because when I see Mars and Neptune square, I can see like a scapegoating energy, and you be blamed for some stuff that you may or may not be guilty of. So you actually attract jealousy as well, in other words. And since Uranus is also inside because of his uniqueness.
Yeah.
And these 2 planets, which are in Capricorn, are ruled by Saturn again, in the sign of Aquarius. So when like it almost tells me that each time he is true to himself to exhibit his uniqueness and flair, he gets put down by people.
There's some kind of punishment coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, and that Saturn is also squaring Pluto natally. So there's this kind of like a blowback, and people are just waiting to tear him down. You know, like invites jealousy as well.
Well, and you can even see why his dad is so sensitive. He has the moon in the 10th house, and the ruler of the 10th house is in the sign of Virgo, so, which is a very worrying energy, can be.
Yeah. And so there's that. And what else can I actually say? I actually picked up, looked at the fixed stars as well. And Venus in the solar return chart at the end of Gemini is conjunct this fixed star called Betelgeuse. And Betelgeuse talks about sexual troubles, issues, and what
And
else?
Venus rules his 8th house as well.
Oh, yes. And also Mars is on this fixed star called Alhaca, which also talks about potential sorrows regarding the family or with the family. So there could be like a initial inhibition, like he's been holding it in all this while, and at age 10 he just decided to, like, you know what, I should just come out.
Well, and Mars represents courage, so it's the one that's conjuncted, right?
Yeah. And in the sign of Gemini, it's about telling, you know, telling people up front, which is the 10th, you know, showing it to the public, make it visible to the family in his natal 4th. So Yeah, this is what I got at age 10, which is very interesting.
That is very interesting. And then you also mentioned something else very interesting that happened to him at age 12.
Oh, yes. But before we actually go into that, I think just now we briefly explored Venus opposing, tightly opposing Pluto.
Mhm.
And this actually has, besides affecting, or giving him the quality of his voice that he has, um, when I think about plastic surgery,
Mhm.
it also tells me,
Does he have plastic surgery?
well, I mean, kind of. We're going to move into that, and like Taurus is to beautify, right?
Mhm.
And Venus is in its own sign in his natal chart. Pluto is in it also co-rules Scorpio. So when these two are in opposition and both are pretty strong by sign,
Mhm.
something tells me, yeah, he could have a little bit of like nip and tuck along the way.
Yeah.
But it's not something that, I found out about. Which brings me to my next topic about, he's actually got a condition that's,
Do you think with Venus opposition Pluto that tightly, it's also like a recycling of lovers all the time? Like a
it
constant
could be. I mean,
relation?
it's like Venus Pluto opposition is like, that jealousy, possessiveness,
Hmm.
uh, definitely a strong sex drive.
Yeah.
um, Relationship power struggles, losses, and yeah, just issues around that. And since Venus is also,
Do you think power struggles with siblings then? Because I know he has two sisters.
if I'm not wrong, he's very protective of those two younger sisters.
Makes sense.
But Venus is also in a third house, which rules like friends.
Yeah.
It's a social part of the chart, and he may actually lose friends for no reason, or his friends could be jealous of him
Hmm.
of some sorts, which I think he's mentioned it like from time to time that he does. But he does have a medical condition actually, since we're talking about towards the direction of like potential plastic surgery.
Hmm.
He actually has this condition called like gynecomastia, Gynecomastia. And what it does is that it's actually too much estrogen in the
Hmm.
male body that makes him develop moobs or man boobs.
Hmm.
And ever since he was a kid, I think he's been teased about having male breasts, and
Yeah.
he's being bullied from it. And I actually dig into like little bits of medical astrology, and I found certain things. The first thing that I checked for regarding this particular medical condition, is that I actually checked whether in his chart there's implications of like um, the endocrine system and glands, whether is it producing an unequal amount of testosterone and also an excessive amount of estrogen.
Hmm.
So the first thing I check is that I check the endocrine system and glands first, and I check Sun, Mars, Pluto, and Venus, and also the sign of Libra that rules Venus, and
Hmm.
also Uranus as well, which rules the endocrine functioning and the glands. And what it told me is that because Sun, which rules the health or illnesses, which is the sixth house, is conjunct Venus. So tick. One condition. And both of these are actually opposing Pluto.
Right.
So there's something the endocrine system and glands are like, there could be some imbalance. Oh, let's look at, before we actually go to the breast part, which is the moon, like you explained, the out of bound moon. Let's look at the testosterone production level and also the estrogen production level from the adrenal glands. And for the testosterone level, we actually look at Mars. And Mars, in his natal chart, actually squares Neptune, which can kind of weaken it. And Uranus is also there, close by, which means that it's kind of up and down. And then I checked the estrogen level, and estrogen level represented by Venus, it is actually trine the same two planets, which are Neptune and Uranus. So when it's a trine and opposing Pluto, of course, it actually tells me that it can be excessive in a way because of opposition to Pluto. What do you think?
Well, and Venus and Neptune are both very feminine energies. And Uranus is involved, so it's like all of a sudden.
Yeah. So it's like, so we check the endocrine system and glands and check if like, does the adrenal glands actually produce a disproportionate testosterone and estrogen level, which leads to him having boobs, which is the breast is ruled by moon. So this is very interesting because it's like, and moon is conjunct by, this is in different signs, but it's conjunct the north node as well, natally. So anything the moon conjuncts, particularly the north node, it expands. It's got that Jupiterian quality to it.
And at age 12, then he was in a first house perfected year. So we know that something's going on with his physical body. Jupiter is in the sign of Virgo, talking about something health related, and Jupiter rules that moon.
Let's look at did I actually age 12, yes. I actually dug out his solar return chart that year.
I like
Pre-fame, post-fame, whatever.
You know what I mean? So organized.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So this is the natal chart inside and the solar return on the outside at age 12, which is a Pisces perfected year, his first house. And Jupiter will be playing a role, a huge role in telling the story, what happens. But having said that, do you actually see natal Venus, natal Pluto is highlighted by the solar return midheaven? That's one. And if I just look at the solar return chart by itself, Venus is actually in opposition to Pluto in the solar return chart. So it's like a mirroring of like natal aspects. And there's something like when I saw this, there's a feeling of like, could he be doing something to his body to transform it, to beautify it?
Yeah, because when there's repeating aspects, they're activated.
And he's having a Jupiter return at age 12. So in the sign of Virgo, which is health.
And Pluto's very close to his moon, which is breast.
Yes, Pluto's very close to the midheaven and moon. So there's something to do with like, I need to get this done. And so what happened was he's got liposuction at 12 to reduce the size of his breast. which is his medical condition we just covered.
He goes through a lot of shit at a young age. You know, he came out when he was 10. He had liposuction when he was 12.
Well, you know, one more thing though, Venus is actually retrograde inside the solar return chart in the 6th house of health.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to beautify something from the past, retrograde, you know, that is something that he suffers from, like from an illness perspective, which is 6th house.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sign of Gemini, both rest.
And he's having a solar return new moon. So some kind of new beginning is going on.
Oh yeah, very close to new moon, which is like, I think like even, I think this one is called the balsamic, like dark moon or something. He wants to like put an end to something.
Yeah.
Wants to put an end to something. So, yeah, and that's why it's like, I think he's like, this tells me that he probably got bullied to such an extent at age 12 that he just finally decided to just, you know what, I need to get this done to get away from it all.
And Taurus is talking about your self-worth anyways. So this is like a new beginning for him in terms of how he feels about himself.
And North Node is actually in a solar return, conjunct natal Mercury. Yeah. Stuff has been on his mind a lot regarding this procedure. Geez, you know, like I can't imagine having liposuction at 12.
That's crazy. I didn't even know. I was like, what? When you told me that, I'm like, is that a real thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and the ascendant is actually in the solar return conjunct Neptune and Uranus.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see these two planets together, it can be the combination for a nut job or a wackadoo. It can be like, you know, just two planets together. It can mean like a, like what? At age 12 he had this, you know, like probably that's what the parents actually told him, like you must be a nut job, to, you know, wanting to do this at age 12.
Yeah.
You know, but hey, Chiron actually trines his sun. And also trine the solar return moon, close to exact actually. Chiron in the solar return chart actually form a pretty exact trine to the moon. So he wants to heal the breast. Literally. So I find that very interesting as well. I remember you talking earlier about the mom being the breadwinner of the family. And there's something that happens in 2008 that I find very interesting from reading.
The dirt.
Yes, the dirt. But well, it's already like well published. Back then, Sam Smith is still not famous. So, or so to speak, he's released some songs here and there at age 16, I suppose, but just gone nowhere.
Yeah.
Actually, it's his mom who's earning
and
very
we're
well.
talking about this year was a 5th house perfected year. His 5th house is in the sign of Cancer, so that's already talking about the mom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And part of fortune is there.
And he's trying to, at this time, get famous. He's trying to release music, creativity, that's 5th house. Center stage roles, again, 5th house.
But then what actually happened was, since we're looking at moon, and he's got an out of bound moon. So, so every time he's got a Cancer house cast perfected year, something big is about to happen because of his natal moon being out of bounds.
And conjunct his midhaven.
And it's conjunct his midhaven, so it's played out for the world to see.
Yeah.
And in this particular solar return, moon is also very high up in the sky, conjunct the midhaven in the solar return charts. So natally, it repeats itself into the solar chart. And the moon is 12 signs from the natal moon sign, and we end up with Scorpio. And Scorpio rules like huge wealth. Since it's conjunct the midheaven, there's something to do with the mom's job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to do with the mom's job inside a financial institution, which is the 11th house, in the solar return chart.
And we're talking about the mom's job too, because Scorpio is 6 signs from the 4th house. The 4th house representing mom. So 6 signs from there is talking about her work, her day-to-day work.
And we have natally Pluto, that so some kind of transformation or crisis may arise.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at the natal midheaven and moon, we've got solar return Juno there inside the solar return 12th house. So there's a loss of commitment somehow, or allegedly, that led to her dismissal, which is 12th house energies, being let go from something.
Well, and the moon in his chart, like moon represents mom, the MC represents career. So mom's career, and it's falling in the solar return 12th house. So loss of that career.
And if I actually look into it further, he just had a Venus return. Venus return actually occurred in the solar return 5th house and natally in the 3rd house. So the 3rd house natally can also represent 6 houses from the moon, if we count the moon, the mom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's another indication where there's a new beginning in terms of the mom's journey in the workforce.
And if you're looking at derivative houses with the 4th house representing mom, the 12th house represents losses of your mom.
And with the ruler of that 4th house, Mercury, in the 3rd house, there's bound to be some loss of sorts. And it's activated at age 16 in his solar return charts. Very interesting, eh? Yeah, at age 16, and there's so many things going on.
And then, so what happened? She basically did legal action towards them and won and got a large sum of money that she used to help Sam with his career ultimately.
Yes, I think she's gotten like a huge payout from there.
Yeah.
And I think you can see it from like that moon's ruler, Jupiter, is conjunct solar return Saturn. You reap what you sow. So, and in the solar return 9th house, legal proceedings, the law, what's right.
Yeah.
So she's given like a fair compensation regarding that. And that is the sum of money that the mom actually uses to because it's stated in the newspapers that she actually believes a lot in her son's talents.
Well, and Saturn rules his house of gains, and Jupiter rules his moon.
Exactly. So you can see like ultimately it's like a win situation for the mom when she goes to court with pertaining to this situation. Interesting, eh? At age 16.
Very interesting.
At age 16.
Yeah.
And at age 18, that's when his parents actually split.
I didn't even know that they did split.
Yeah. It's like age 18 will be 7th house perfection. So it's Mercury. Mercury as the ruler of Virgo. So when I look at the solar return, I noticed a few things. 2 planets are actually at critical degree at 29, which is Uranus at 29 of Pisces in the solar return chart, and Venus is at 29 degrees of the solar return chart, and is square to each other. Uranus is naturally the sign of divorce. Pisces is endings.
Yeah.
And it's squaring that solar return Venus, which is mercurial, which is ruled by Mercury. And where is Mercury in the solar return chart? The highest planet in the highest visible planet in the solar return chart in the sign of Taurus. So it's almost saying that there's an urgency, because 29 degrees rules urgency. Venus square Uranus is to divorce from a relationship.
So at 29 degrees too, that's talking about an ending because it's getting ready to switch into another sign. And that Venus at 29 degrees rules his 8th house, which talks about divorce anyway. And it's within its family, within the 4th house.
And we can see that Jupiter is inside that perfected house natally, which is Jupiter. So Jupiter rules the 10th and the 7th. So Jupiter rules the 1st and the 10th. Sorry. So definitely it I reckon it's the mom who actually initiated this separation. There's a hint of that coming in terms of what I see. So I actually look into that Mercury, because Mercury, like in the solar return chart, is in a sign of Taurus, which rules like value systems. Maybe their value systems just kind of grew apart, and hence the parents actually split.
Well, and like you said, like planets conjunct the angles are always going to be important, and Mercury in his natal chart rules his 7th house and his 4th house. So something to do with relationships, something to do with his family that year is going to be a focal point for him.
7th and 4th being Mercury rules in the 3rd house, because which means Mercury is the 12th from the 4th. There's some hidden things that we didn't know.
Or even the loss of a home, because if like Gemini is dual sign, so it can represent 2 places of living too. So it's like a separation of homes.
And if I count from the 7th all the way to where Mercury is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 in terms of house can mean major changes. So major changes and results in the loss of a home as well. So in the short 18 years, he's been through quite a bit.
Yeah, he's very interesting. He's went through like a lot at a young age that,
But you know what? The parent separation can be emotionally healing for him, because the solar return moon is actually conjunct his Chiron. So there's some kind of, I remember reading something that he said regarding his parents' divorce, saying that it's amicable. They don't really hate each other. They're still like, BFFs. And I find that when they split, I actually feel like there's something in the family that's healed from this separation and divorce eventually.
Oh, interesting.
And the ascendant is actually conjunct his natal part of fortune. It kind of brings everything that what we discussed into manifestation.
So do you think the father then benefited financially, because Leo is the sign of the dad, and I know he was a stay-at-home dad. So do you think he financially benefited from that divorce?
Well, the ruler of that Leo, sun is in Taurus. So I suppose so. Both have moved on, if I'm not wrong, from there.
Mm-hmm.
And and we've got an angular Mars as well. Yeah.
Well, and the ninth house can talk about the father as well, and Mars rules the ninth and the second house again about money. So I feel like his dad might have benefited financially somehow from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised if he does.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying that that actually is the ninth house and also the second house, you mean?
No, the second house just being of money, but sometimes the ninth house can
Okay.
talk about the father as well as
Right.
the
So
10th.
this is farther, this is the money. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So this is before he really like broke out on the scene. And on a happier note, he actually made it, at a just
Otherwise, we
once.
probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah, or we wouldn't be here. And let's zoom forward to
Because you kind of pinpointed when he had his rise, right?
yeah, I actually zoomed in on I mean he's released like, I think we all know Sam Smith's songs like Latch.
Mm-hmm.
And he started, what's very interesting? He started releasing songs that's like in the genre of like electronic dance music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uranus is electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Neptune is music.
Yeah. Interesting.
Trining all his planets like in Taurus
Yeah.
in the third. So that's why like he decided to release his first few tracks as like at least remixed into like with a different beat, and people can dance to that, and that's how he got his rise in stardom. Latch was remixed, and what else? I think later on we have the song Omen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's another one, but later. Let's zoom forward to 2013 when he's 21 years old. A few things happened. Like he released his first EP, which is called Nirvana. He also started releasing the first single of his Grammy Award-winning album called "Money on My Mind" in the US. Isn't it uncanny that the third house is the mind, and Taurus rules money?
Mm-hmm.
So "Money on My Mind" is especially fitting, and that's where he broke out as an international star.
Yeah.
So when we talk about age 21, it will be 18, 19, 20, 21. A Jupiterian ruled perfected year. So what has been going on? At age 21, which is the 10th house perfected year, we've got like Jupiter ruling it, and there's midheaven and the moon. And the moon is out of bounds. So this is activated in his chart. And I gotta check what's the ruler of this two in this, and what is the moon doing in the solar return chart. Moon is actually in the solar return chart conjunct the ruler of his natal moon and midheaven. And moon
And the
is
seventh house can talk about fame, can it?
Yeah, and moon is inside the solar return fifth house, which rules like creative endeavors
And entertainment and
and
self-expression.
performing.
Yeah.
Also, what I found interesting is that Chiron is actually bang on his ascendant in the middle of Pisces. So when I see this coming up, actually Chiron on the ascendant, one of the lesser known side effects is that it can bring not only healing or the other keywords that Chiron represents, but it can also represent a maverick.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like starting on a new uncharted territory in terms of his life path.
And his natal Chiron is in the sign of Leo as well.
Yeah, so it's about,
Where his
like
part of fortune is.
musical endeavors, Leo,
Mm-hmm.
entertainment. So it came back around to and Pisces, music, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that. And what
Yeah,
else
because
do I
his natal Chiron is in Leo as well, so that's ruled by the sun. So it's in the sign of Taurus, talking about the voice and music again.
And the solar return, the highest, the planet that's closest to the midheaven in the solar return chart is Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
And the MC is like activating his Uranus Neptune conjunction, trining his third house natal planets, which the solar return ascendant activates.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's like this kind of like natal 11th house and natal third house. Both houses, third and 11th, rules with popularity.
Media, business.
Yeah. And that's also like including the seventh house, basically the air houses,
Yeah.
which are the represented by earth signs in his natal chart.
Mm-hmm.
And the seventh house natally is also activated by the moon. So indirectly, his natal third, 7th, and 11th are all activated in that particular year, which is when he's 21.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the activation is his Jupiter, which rules his profected house cusp, which is in Sagittarius.
And that was his first song that came out that everybody really liked was Latch, right?
But that was like a single rather than like a full like album of songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also when I think later on in this same year, he actually released his In the Lonely Hour album.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 12th house, right? Saturn.
Sure. And then we kind of had, well, not a debate, but where the name Latch came from, and we thought of a couple different ways. Like the first way that I seen was that his fifth house, talking about romance, is in the sign of Cancer, and what do crabs do? They latch on, right? So I was like, maybe it comes from there. And then, but Donny mentioned, where did you think that came from? I remember you said something.
Well, I mean, like Latch also right represents Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you think about reading into the lyrics of the song Latch, there's one phrase that can I lock in your love?
Mm.
Like leading up to the chorus, and that's very Saturnian to me.
Yeah.
And Saturn actually is the T square.
Yeah.
Between his Taurus planets natally opposing Pluto, which is to own someone.
Yeah.
By locking them down.
Well, and he has Pluto near his solar return MC, and that's what he got known for that year, was that song. And that's also very, Latch can be very plutonic, like possessive,
Yeah. And the solar return, was it released in 2013, the song Latch? Maybe
Yeah.
not. But Money on My Mind, definitely. That's when it's released.
Those two both were, I think.
And you've got like North Node transiting past all the third house planets natally.
Yeah, 2013 was Money on My Mind and Latch.
Yeah. So you can see that the transiting South Node is actually in his third house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, why not like release a song title that kind of says a lot about my songwriting ability. So Money on My Mind, how symbolic and literal is that?
Yeah, and he has Mars there, which is in his natal house of making money, and it's falling into his third house of how your mind is working or what you're focused on mentally.
And solar return Mars actually conjunct Venus, down to the degree.
Money on my mind.
Money on my mind and how to earn those coins.
For sure.
using my songs and songwriting ability. You know what I mean? So literally his air houses, but in earth signs natally, it kind of like solidify his popularity of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because earth signs are actually like it's for a long time to come. Let's hope he's still writing songs and singing songs that we listen to many years down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on then. So are we gonna see like how his love life is like coming up? We've talked about a lot of like not so happy things. Well, and some good things, of course, that came out of it.
I mean, this isn't that happy either, what we're going to look at, because we're talking about a breakup here, and I think it was one that was pretty significant for him. And I think this is actually someone karmic for him, because in the solar return before this was when they met, and he was in a fifth house perfected month. So it's ruled by Cancer, by the moon. And the moon in that chart was at 29 degrees of Aquarius, and it was conjunct the south node. So I think this was definitely someone he was supposed to meet for his evolution or growth or whatever it was. But this would be the year that we're talking about when they broke up. So we're going to look at kind of why we think they broke up and cover that.
9 months later.
Yes, 9 months later. So they were together for 9 months. So in the solar return chart, the first thing that I noticed is the solar return ascendant is conjunct Chiron. And I did read interviews of his this year, and I found it interesting what he said. He said he was trying to find ways to organize all of his problems so that they were bound and organized into folders and boxes so they would never haunt him again. He also spoke a lot this year about mental health and depression. And he admitted that he gets really jealous of other people's relationships. So this all to me is very Chiron, especially in the sixth house. That's the original house of Virgo. And he's talking about compartmentalizing his pain into organized files and boxes. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, and that ruler of Leo sun natally is like conjunct Venus, opposing natal Pluto.
Yeah.
Ooh, I want to have what you want to. I want to have what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, he has an interview that he said, and it was this year too. He's like, when I see couples, he's like, I just want to poke their eyes. I was like, what? And he's like, it's hard to see other people happy when you feel like shit. And he was actually very like open about how he felt about like seeing other people romantically together. And Leo being the sign of romance, and his ascendant being conjunct Chiron as well, tells me that there's some kind of pain that could be happening in his love life already.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting though, giving interviews is actually third house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sun
He's
and
like
third.
dishing everything out.
Yeah. And he is in a third house perfected year this year. So that would be Taurus. And in the month that they broke up, so he did two things that were really big this year. He went on tour. So third house can talk about like travel, right? Travel for business specifically. It's not like the ninth house where you go on vacation or you go for those kinds of reasons. The third house is more business oriented, right? And in his solar return, it's falling in the 10th house. So he's really focused on career. He actually went on tour, and he went on tour right after him and this guy broke up. So it's all around the same time. And the perfected month just happens to be this month when Venus is opposing Pluto. So they were kind of secretive about why it is they broke up. But the only thing he would say was that, the career and the personal life, they weren't meshing well together. And you can really, really see that with the Venus. But I think there's something hidden going on because they're pretty secretive about it. And, I don't buy that as a total story.
Oh, and also like I can see from his natal chart, right? Like Juno is like the person that you want to commit to.
Mm-hmm.
And Juno in his natal chart is in the 25 degrees of Aries. Mm-hmm. And Aries is like a warrior, like my way or the highway kind of energy.
Yeah.
And Juno is also squaring natally to his Neptune and Uranus. So definitely when it comes to his relationships, it's a very fast electrifying magnetic attraction.
Yeah.
But then, hey, Uranus doesn't have any holding power. It just like turns on and turns off.
Mm-hmm.
So everything can be kind of like touch and go, kind of.
Yeah.
Like you can like come together fast, but you can also break up fast.
So since we're talking about Juno, what do you think of Juno conjunct the MC in that solar return?
Well, I mean, the ruler of that Juno is Mars again, also in
Mm-hmm.
Aries, and it's highlighting that solar return, MC Juno conjunction on his
Yep.
Mars, close to exact actually.
Yeah.
And it's about, I think that's one of the big things, or should I say how he achieved his goal for the year is by breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the committed one.
Well, and he's got Venus at 29 degrees again. So we know something important is going to be happening in his relationships. And then we have this moon opposition Pluto here too, between the 5th and the 11th.
Oh, and Black Moon Lilith on his solar return Pluto.
Yeah, like I think actually, I actually think that there's something more to this story than just their careers, where, you know, they couldn't manage the personal and social life at the same time. I think something else was going on a little bit.
Yeah.
I think there might have been some cheating involved personally.
I'm not surprised if it does. Like there might be someone just there's some confrontation as well. We talk about 5th, 11th, because if you count the Pluto Lilith in his natal 11th is the 5th from the 7th, which is the lover of the partner. And he's committed.
Oh yeah.
So
and I know he was very devastated by that relationship. So I feel like it would have been the other person too.
Well, I mean, to put it in perspective, when Sam Smith works, he works really hard. I think it can be seen from his like third house Taurus energy. You know, when he works very hard. You know what I mean? And so
he isolates and he retreats to do that.
He writes songs in private, you know.
Yeah. I know there's a couple times when he totally like disappeared and then all of a sudden a song would be being released and everybody thought he's like on a hiatus and it's like boom, like that song with Normani and like the
Dancing with a Stranger, which is kind of fitting in his chart, right?
This was the year that basically got released. So when it got released this was May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. It was this month and Pluto's there. So it's like everybody's like, okay, he just went on tour. He's not going to release anything. And then it was like, you know,
a single.
Yeah. And then it just like came out of the ashes kind of, you know, everybody thought he was like on the down low and then Pluto, he reemerged like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was it when like release of the single Dancing with a Stranger that he broke up as well?
No, it was in the same year. They broke up. So this would be May 19th to June 19th. His tour started on June 18th and they had already just broken up. So that would have been
month,
yeah.
So literally like right on that sun then, when we actually count like in detail.
I think the breakup would have been around Venus and like that opposition to Pluto, and then the tour I feel like was when it hit the sun.
How about that solar return ascendant on his natal Chiron, and also like the North Node is also like close by there. It's almost like it's time to be alone because ascendant North Node, right?
Yeah.
Don't dwell so much into relationships and focus on yourself. And Leo, music career, of course.
Yeah, and the sun falling in the solar return as well. So
it could be cheating as a multi-layer affair, but I think like part of it could be really like, you know, to concentrate on his work.
Well, because if you look at the solar return ascendant, that moon is falling then in the 12th house. So there is definitely something hidden. I know they kind of hid the whole breakup altogether, and he didn't even really come out about it until like a year later, started talking about it publicly. So there's definitely something like hidden going on, whether that's cheating or him just not wanting to, talk about it. I know he was like very, very hurt by this particular relationship.
Right. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention one thing regarding his Juno. His Juno is actually tightly trine Moon and Midheaven, natally speaking. His Juno
Oh,
is at
natal.
25 Aries,
Right.
so it's nearly close to exact, and his Moon is out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked earlier about an out of bound Moon being like out of this world, but also hypersensitivity.
Yeah.
And also with his natal like Venus, Pluto type opposition,
Mm-hmm.
the smallest thing can really like lead him down the road of like jealousy and possessiveness.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah,
after this breakup, he said, I'm going to be single for a while. I'm not going to do relationships. So that's this little bit of bitterness and pain coming from Chiron, right? But he said instead, he's like, I'm going to marry my career. Those were his words. I'm going to marry my career. He's got
Juno trine midheaven career.
Exactly. And Jupiter in his 7th house of partnerships ruling his 10th house.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny when people say things for word, you can see it sometimes.
Yeah, let's just look into the camera. Like if Sam Smith, you're like looking at our video now, you know who to call. Okay.
Yeah. You wanted to mention the part of fortune conjunct the vertex, didn't you?
Well, part of fortune is about, it's got 3 components merged into one, which is sun, moon, and ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
So in the solar return chart, where part of fortune is actually is your pot of gold.
Mm-hmm.
So it falls into the solar return 2nd house, which is money, the money that he earns or his values.
You mean the 7th house?
In the solar return 2nd house, the outer ring.
Oh, the solar return. Okay.
Yeah, solar return. So it's in a sign of Virgo, which is work,
mm-hmm.
which kind of ties in well with like he wants to like delve into work to kind of
and Mercury's in the 10th as
like
well.
he values his work a lot.
Yeah.
And it falls into the natal 7th house, which is committed partnerships on his vertex. So it's almost like work or man. Work or man. this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean there could be some truth in it, but I also agree with the whole like, there's another layer of like cheating involved as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that you said that because his 9th house is in Scorpio, and Scorpio can be very black and white anyway. So he might have beliefs about you can only have one or the other, or it has a hard time balancing it, especially with, Mars in the 2nd house about how you earn money. It feels like he'd be more ambitious towards that.
And Mars, like in Aries, they really, especially in the 2nd house, it not only magnetically attracts that energy, which is money to you,
mm-hmm.
but also like that's what he puts a lot of his energy, Mars, into.
Yeah.
It's what makes him secure.
Yeah. Should we look at another event?
Sure.
Okay, I'm excited about this one. This is the reason. This is the one why I thought he was a Pisces rising to begin with when we were talking about that. Because I noticed that there was a full moon in Pisces. And the day that there was a full moon in Pisces was the day he came out as non-binary. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And he has a lot of qualities of a Piscean anyway. So, but that kind of solidified it for me.
Right. That's just one of the things, we look into like when we...
well, and the timing of everything kind of lines up. Too many things line up. Like, I'm pretty confident that we are correct.
So yes, look at the solar return chart.
Okay. Where are we here?
So 2019, he'll be like 4th house perfected year. Okay. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
The dual sign of Gemini again.
Dual sign of Gemini. He's got his solar return ascendant in his 8th house. So it's already talking about something taboo, some secrets coming out.
Sexual identity.
Yeah, and it can involve the way you do relationships. It's in the sign of Libra.
Libra is also neither here or there.
And
Always on the fence.
from the solar return chart, if you count, Venus would land 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now we have a double 8th house energy. So something's definitely going on with that.
So 8 from the 8th.
And Venus is conjunct Uranus.
So 8 from the 8th can be a death and rebirth of a sexual identity.
Yep.
Okay.
And it is conjunct Uranus. So it could be something that came out very like shocking. It's in his 11th house. So it's, media, the masses. He came out to a bunch of people and he came out on social media.
Yeah, 3rd house rules social media, posting.
And he's got his natal Uranus in the 11th house. So again, talking about social media. It was Instagram, Venus, I think he made that post first.
Yeah, Venus, Uranus, like in his solar return 8th house, right? It also mean that like declaring a preference to be called they instead of he or she, because Uranus has no sex.
True.
Yeah, Uranus has no sex, right? So it's like I remember him reading his post, and it's like, I don't want to be known as he or she. I want to be known as they or them.
And what did he do? He started transforming his appearance and wearing makeup Venus.
Yeah, makeup.
I know he did that when he was younger, but then this is like when he came out wearing makeup and stuff like that again as well.
When I think shortly after his Venus return, because in his solar return chart, he's very close to getting his next solar return soon, like in a matter of like what, both Venuses are 16 degrees apart. So it's almost like preparing for that launch of a new identity.
And to Venus rules, so Venus rules his 8th house, which is his solar return ascendant. His natal Venus is opposition Pluto in the 9th house. The 9th house can talk about publishing. The 3rd house can talk about media. And what was happening was that people in the media were basically publishing things about him, saying that it was a publicity stunt, or that, some people were saying negative things. He was criticized a lot.
Well, and also like Scorpio is quite a shady sign. So the media basically like the 9th house is actually like mass media. So the mass media came for him.
Yeah.
And like say some shady things, which is Scorpio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, and Mercury is combust in the solar return chart.
And he's in a Mercury perfected year as well.
Mercury is combust, so it may not be the most effective way that he done it, maybe.
Yeah.
How about that Mars midheaven conjunction in the solar return?
His sexuality becomes very public.
Very much so. And it's in Cancer, right? Where Mars doesn't function very well.
Yeah.
Oh, and the ruler of that solar return midheaven and Mars is in the sign of Sagittarius. In the solar return chart.
Oh, right.
So to say 3rd house, solar return chart 3rd house, to say the truth.
Yeah. And if you look at too, so this is his perfected year, the 4th house year. So this would be, his birthday is May 19th. So May 19th to June 19th and onwards. So May, June, July, August, September. So it's actually would be like towards the end of Virgo, but Virgo would be an important month, being that it's Mercury ruled as well. And then it goes straight into a solar return ascendant. So we know that's like a hot spot for a significant event. And that's actually exactly
right before he completes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else you see?
Not that I know of. Maybe we want to like see like his do you want to talk about his current meltdown from the lockdown?
Yeah, let's do that. We should probably also mention that just because we're talking about right now, his album got pushed back. So
Yeah.
let's go there. Let's go there.
Because right now he's, if I'm not wrong, was it?
Okay, so that would still be, he's still in 2019 until,
May
and then we'll go to his album release because he's pushed that back, so that's no longer going to be in.
I think he announced it on 1st of April, or was it on 31st of March, if I'm not wrong, like that he's gonna push it back. 1st of April, April 4th.
I thought I had it written down. Yeah.
So if you count from the 4th house, the Gemini house cast, we 9 months later, was it 9 months later? February 19 to March 18, he'll land by month.
Yeah, it was March 30th.
March 30th, okay. I thought so. So,
so we're talking about May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March.
Let's talk about February, because February, that's when...
Yeah, we can't go past that. So being in a Mercury perfected year, we know that Mercury is going to be very, very important. And we know that Mercury just went retrograde. So if you notice when I was counting the months from February 19th to March 19th, we're in a Pisces perfected month. So that just happens to be the time when Mercury is going retrograde also. So it was already important for him. Now it kind of becomes double important to him. So this is like basically when he decided he had to make a lot of revisions to his album. He retracted it basically and decided that it wasn't an appropriate time to launch it. He said he wanted to make some important changes, some additions, and then he didn't feel right releasing it given the circumstances. But he said he did a lot of reflecting about that. So, I mean, Mercury retrograde there talks about that so much.
Well, and Pisces, right? Pisces rules PJs or pajamas.
Yeah.
And he's posted something on his social media, wearing his PJs and having like a fake meltdown of sorts while being under lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Mercury is like by transit retrograding.
Yeah, and then that's very public because Jupiter is conjunct his MC retrograde. And so this is talking about like something going backwards in his career, but it's also like what you're talking about, right?
Oh, like something he did before, like you got to serve that planet's karma. So it's like whatever that you've posted, you got to be accounted for.
Yeah, and it's very public. It's
he's being called out here.
Yeah.
So was it you said that he pushed back his album on March 30th officially?
Yeah, March 30th, yeah.
March 30th would be which sign?
So that's
Aries, right?
Aries now. Yeah. So this was like when he was rethinking everything and he wrote, for the past couple of weeks I've been thinking about whatever. This is when he took action.
Well, I think he's also renaming his whole album.
He is.
Because it was supposed to be called To Die For.
Yeah. Now it's inappropriate.
Yeah. So
yeah. Yeah. So I think okay, so when he was gonna release it, this would have been, let me say February. Yeah, March, April, May. So it would have jumped over to Cancer. And so that would activate it as MC. So it's funny that that's when he was going to release it.
Was it May 1st he's supposed to like release it?
I don't know the exact day. So
I think he was supposed to release it on May 1st, 2020. That's before the pushback.
Yeah. So if we look at his 2020.
Yes. I'm very
because
curious.
I want to kind of like, I want to try to call when I think that is going to be coming out here.
Come on, spill the tea.
Okay. I have two theories, but one I'm much stronger about.
Okay.
So I think that it'll be October.
Hmm.
So, or it could be the end of July, beginning of August, but I feel more sure about October because he'll be in a fifth house perfected year. So May, June, July, August, September, October. So he's in a moon perfected year. That's when the moon is getting activated, his MC is getting activated, and his solar return ascendant is all getting activated in his 10th house / first house. So I think that's the strongest month. What do you think?
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Yeah. But also, when I think about it, because like fifth house is ruled by Cancer, which is the moon, and then the next year is ruled by the sun.
Right.
So when we talk about perfected houses, like ruled by the luminaries, we cannot discount the power of eclipses.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually dug up like certain important eclipses that's coming for him. There's one on 21st of June 2020 when he's in this current solar return. And June 21st would be which perfected month? This is May. This is June 8th. Okay. So there will be a solar eclipse right bang on his south node in his natal fifth house when June 21st swings around this year. And I've actually checked out what family of eclipses this particular one on his south node, close to exact, belongs to. And this belongs to Saros cycle 4 North. And the theme of this eclipse, I think, is quite...
What is the Saros cycle? Just a little description for anybody that doesn't know.
Oh, Saros cycle is basically like people investigate, like astrologers who actually do research. They actually track family of eclipses. Basically, Saros cycle means that you have got repeating eclipses that's like roughly about 19 years apart that belong to the same family in terms of energy. And then they kind of lump them together and they kind of cluster them together and they name it like, you know, one north, 2 north, 3 north, 4 new north, 4 old north, whatever.
Yeah.
That. And this one, the name is Saros cycle 4 north. This one is a bit of a tricky eclipse though, because it's in his fifth house of creative endeavors. And we're talking about the south node natally for him. So there's some form of needing to let go.
And he's in a fifth house perfected year, and the moon is of special importance because of that.
Yes. So it's almost like he's feeling this eclipse before it actually happened. So this eclipse, what does it mean? When we talk about Saros cycle 4 North, it talks about restrictions, restraint, separation, and illusions. Events can occur that seem to block him. Isn't that fitting?
Yeah.
His album release just got blocked by this, like, you know, events.
Well, and then speaking of blockages, then he's got his Saturn return coming up here.
Yep.
And I know that, like, when I had my Saturn return, it was more as soon as Saturn moved into that house when basically the shit fell apart. And then after that, you're kind of required to do all the hard work that feels really slow and like sucks a lot. But like when it initially goes in there is when you start to feel some kind of restriction. And right when he, you know, before he announced that he had to push his album off was right when, you know, Saturn was going to go into Aquarius. So
and oh, by the way, this eclipse also, like with this blocking, he is prone to misjudge his strengths or the situation. So it's best for him to wait it out until the eclipse passes before taking any real action.
Yeah.
This is a relatively difficult family of eclipses. So earlier on, you were saying that which probable month he will release his album.
I think October, but it could be what month was it? October. I don't know how to go backwards.
July, was it?
May, June, end of July or beginning of August, I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking more like later in the year. But having said that, I think Saturn by transit will leave him alone for a little bit when it retreats back into Capricorn.
Yeah.
Like then, okay, since we are talking about like perfected 5th and 6th house natally for him, which kind of brings in the eclipse energy, there's actually another eclipse end of this year on the 14th of December. Very close to his moon.
Yeah.
And midheaven. Okay. And it's a Saros cycle 4 south. Okay. So let me just kind of briefly tell you the mood of this eclipse. So it carries very strong emotional feelings concerning relationships and or money.
Yeah.
He could develop a strong sense of anger or lust. There's also a sense of fatedness, and he may find himself being caught up in relationship events that's beyond his control. But there is also, on the contrary, a sudden desire to finish off a relationship. Emotions can seem blocked or checked in some way, leading to a great deal of frustration. The best approach is to avoid any rash decisions until the issues settle down.
So you said finishing off a relationship, which is funny because he has Venus retrograde, and that'll be in his solar return 7th house. Do you think he has unfinished business with somebody he's got to wrap up?
I reckon it's going to be a past relationship, though, that he's kind of still hanging on. Like maybe there's a chance of it.
Yeah.
Going on, you know. Maybe it's someone that he's already been with, but he's like, whether to just cut that person off altogether out of his life. You reckon he'll meet someone new, like in this solar return charts?
I think 2021 is looking a little more decent for him. Like being in a 5th house perfected year, maybe, but well, let's look at the next one. I'll show you.
Well, but then the 5th house ruler natally is out of bounds, so it's like, you know, touch and go.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe he might have a hoe phase this year. Maybe, I don't know.
What's that term? A thought?
Yeah, I thought.
THOT. If people who don't know what THOT means, it means like that hole over there. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, so the next year we've got Venus and the North Node meeting up. We have Jupiter at 0 degrees.
Oh, that's important. And then the solar return MC is at critical degree.
Right.
Ooh.
Interesting. Moon conjunct part of fortune.
Possible. A work colleague, an assistant.
Oh yeah. So yeah, he could start dating someone from work. Ruler of the 5th and the 6th. Oh, that was the other thing. His angles are aligning this year as well. So he's going to get put on a different path. And we kind of thought that anyway, with all those eclipses and stuff like that happening. So when the ascendant aligns with the ascendant and the MC aligns with the MC, it's usually a very significant year that alters the life of this person.
And also, I think this is the year where, by modality, the solar return midheaven actually changes its characteristic. Previously, I think it's cardinal signs, so he's like keep working nonstop, and now he's I think this is his first solar return that the midheaven lies in a mutable sign.
Yeah. And so his first house is ruled by Jupiter. His 10th house is ruled by Jupiter. So that's representing him. This can talk about your social status, reputation. He has Jupiter in the 7th house. So that's your partnerships. And he's got Jupiter at 0 degrees, a critical degree in his first
New
house.
beginnings.
So something very, very significant happening in those areas for sure.
And his vertex is also at 29.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Are there any more 29 degrees? Do I see? No, probably. Yeah.
You think you'll move in with someone?
I think so. What you reckon?
I think so.
Yeah. Do you think he actually moved countries because of someone?
It could be. So why we're saying that is because the 7th house ruler is in the 4th house here. We talked about Venus and the North Node, the possibility of meeting someone. With the 7th house ruler in the 4th house, this could mean moving in with a partner.
With a partner.
Yeah. Why are you thinking relocation?
And Venus is actually conjunct the North Node.
And the North Node is something foreign, something different.
Exotic.
Yeah. So you can move somewhere totally different.
And you know what? Gemini is a youth-oriented sign, so the guy can be much younger.
You think they'll be younger?
Well, although Sam Smith is not old, I must say, but
yeah,
he could move in with someone younger than him.
Yeah, or it can just be like a youthful person, or you know.
And Juno is opposing that Mercury in the solar return.
So what do you think about that?
Well, Juno means committed, yeah. Sag is like...
And Mercury rules the 7th house?
Sag is to move, like, is to overseas, and is in the solar return 10th house, so it's like close by the midheaven.
Yeah. And Jupiter's in the 1st house, so you think he moves?
I think he moves. I mean, he can live anywhere in the world at this point.
He could have multiple houses if he wanted it. Look, he's got his fucking 4th house in Gemini. He could have 2.
You know, I can. It's either he'll move in with someone younger or he feels on the fence, which is Gemini.
Actually, and look at Uranus is creeping up on Mercury, which rules his 4th house. It could be very fast.
Oh, yeah. Like a snap decision to relocate to another country and move in with someone.
Get good. And Uranus rules his 12th house of foreign countries.
And with that solar return, Mercury and Venus in Gemini with the North Node, right?
Yeah.
Since Gemini is such like a floaty sign that's like kind of you'll be on the fence about things.
Excuse me.
Well, before the decision's made, but when they make a decision, everything just proceeds at like, you know, like lightning fast speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he's having his Saturn return here too.
Well, and solar return midheaven is very close to his moon.
Yeah.
And moon is where you need to live.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in Sag, overseas. Yeah, I see him getting along with, like, meeting someone, though.
I think he's going to meet someone, possibly moving in with them, yeah?
Yeah, because it's almost like like he's been working so hard when the solar return midheaven was in cardinal signs, and now it's about shifting, mutable, shifting around things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In whatever way you want to think about that.
Well, I mean, it's also accepting other people's viewpoints, you know?
Yeah.
And not just kind of my way or the highway. Because I remember having like mutable midheaven in my solar return chart. I always have to maneuver stuff around to actually, like, you know, like circumstances will change a lot for him in the coming. I think I checked from 2021 onwards to 2029 or 2030, he'll have a mutable midheaven. in the solar return chart. So it's all about adjusting.
Yeah, and this one is the first one, so that'll be.
Yeah, so he really be like, whoosh,
Yeah.
like this. You want to do certain things, I'll throw you certain curveballs, because Pluto is like, you know, roll with the punches, with the curveballs. So I think, like, you know, we've done like a really complete job with this chart.
I think we have.
I think we have. If you want more of this, like, you know, spilling the astro tea with me and Josie, let us know in the comment section and, you know, press like. Where can they find you, Josie?
On Facebook or on Astrology.
Yes, and I'll be joining her soon, so look out for that too.
But yeah, if you guys like this video, if you guys comment, that'd be awesome. And then if you guys have any suggestions, if there's enough interest in it, then we'll keep doing these probably once a month or something like that. So let us know, but we want love first.
She wants some love, you know.
Yeah, I want some love.
All right, I think that's a long time for Sam Smith's chart.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right. Thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.